Yo, what's cracking, peeps? Your boy T-Money here for Body Bags. The week is 233, and the TV show I chose to review for you guys tonight, because I was kind of thinking about what I wanted to do, and I rewatched this recently. Is from probably my favorite horror-themed television show of all time. Probably my favorite episode of the show. We have episode 16 from season 2 of Tales from the Crypt, titled Television Terror. Now, uh, I guess the short was released in 1990, directed by Charlie Picerni, who's actually more famous for being a stunt coordinator, I think, than he is a director. He worked on films like the Die Hard films and so on and so forth. It stars Morton Downey Jr., who plays Horton Rivers, and then a few other actors and actresses, but he's the primary actor in this episode. So, basically, the synopsis is a TV show gives an on-air tour of a haunted house, and it's amazing. Like the performance that Horton Rivers, Martin Downey Jr. plays as this asshole TV show host is amazing. He basically plays this jerk who is hated by all of his all the people involved in the television business with him. He's a creep. He's a womanizer. You get the sense that he's a real jerk, basically, for lack of a better description. So he decides that they want to get a lot of views for the air or whatever. They want to boost their ratings. So they decide to film this, basically a live tour of a haunted house where murders took place. The woman Ada Ritter. So the story is this woman, Ada Ritter, I guess she owned or facilitated an old folks home. She murdered all of the people who were staying in the home for their insurance money, I believe. And 5 years later to the day or whatever, Horton Rivers is doing his live show. They're going to go through it. Supposedly haunted, so they're going to give viewers a chance to look inside the Ritter home where these infamous murders took place, the haunted Ritter home. Of course, when he goes in, hell breaks loose. It's Tales from the Crypt. The episode involves a lot of ghouls and just desserts as well, of course. What would Tales from the Crypt be without a just dessert? But it's great. I mean, what I really like about the film is they're filming. So it's it's supposed to be like an on-air, so a lot of it is shot between Horton going into the haunted house, then it pans to the camera crew filming him from inside, from outside. Basically, he's rigged up with cameras. There's a cameraman, of course. It's Horton and his cameraman that go into the Ritter home to do the investigations, but there's the crew outside in a truck, basically, who are kind of walking him through. They're all, synced up with microphones and stuff like that. And yeah, I don't want to spoil much, but it's just a really, really fun episode. Great gags, great music score, a lot of piano, synth piano, very eerie music track, I would say. And just a great classic haunted house film. It's one of the shorter Tales from the Crypt episodes. So I think it was only 28 minutes or something, or maybe just over a half hour, whereas most of them I think were an hour. But it's a shorter one, but it's good because there's no every second of the screen time is valuable. It's what am I saying? The time is utilized. I guess the shortness of the episode is what the fuck am I trying to say? It's good. They don't waste a second. Sorry about that, guys. So yeah, there's no downtime or anything like that. It's very good. It's hard to kind of disclose or to talk about this one without wanting to spoil things, but I'd say the effects of the ghouls and things in the house are great. Practical makeup, very 90s. The dialogue's great. There's a psychic who's kind of commissioned to. He doesn't dare go into the Ritter home, but he's outside on his microphones, and they interview him, and he says at one point oh, you couldn't pay me to go in there, and he just plays this very stern psychic who is very much because Horton Rivers thinks the whole thing is bullshit. It's a hoax. They're doing it to get views and higher ratings. Of course, he doesn't believe in ghosts or any of that. But you've got this psychic who's like, oh no, they're real. You go in there, you're going to die. You couldn't pay me to go in there. And he's like, yeah, well, we're going to have to defy you. We're going in. So, but yes, very, very good acting, especially from the psychic and Horton Rivers. It just does a really good job of, like, you really feel like it could have been like a late 80s, early 90s television show. Because I remember, like, I think in the 90s, didn't, what was his name? Geraldo Rivera do something where he opened the, what the fuck was it? There were things like this going on around that period of time. Live show. So it's very much mirrored from reality-based of TV shows. And it's kind of like a predecessor to the actual reality TV show. Of course, they weren't. The term reality TV wasn't even coined at the time this was filmed, but yeah, just a really, really fun episode. And I love when they first get into the Ritter home, the cameraman, his name's, I think, Trip. He goes, man, I feel like I'm fucking lost in space in here. I love it. It's just great. And the set design's awesome. The home is really eerie. The one thing that I found hard to believe, that if these guys were really going to do this, I find it hard to believe that they would just go into the Ritter home without, like, rigging it for ratings. Because, of course, if you want to get high ratings and you don't believe in ghosts, you're going to rig the shit out of the house. And I don't get the impression they did that. I get the impression that they just cut the tape and entered the crime scene basically 5 years after the murders took place. But, of course, you don't need any, it turns out. Of course, you don't need any, and nothing needs to be rigged because it's all going to be actually happening to them, of course, the gags and whatnot. But it's just kind of weird that they didn't rig that. Just a minor gripe, but otherwise, the what I was trying to say before is the pacing in this film is really good. The acting is great. The setting's great inside the haunted house. The Ada Ritter story, like the mythos of the whole story that they set up, is great. And then the final, like, finale when shit goes down is awesome. There's an awesome sequence involving a chainsaw. I have no idea why they used a chainsaw, but they did. There's also a scene where Horton Rivers opens up the door. They hear, like, drip. They hear dripping, so they go up into the bathroom. And then Horton opens the door and he sees this old man kind of floating in a bathtub. It just pans by and it's like, I think his neck slit or something, and there's blood. It reminded me a lot of another film. I want to say not The Shining. Oof. I'm drawing a blank, but it reminded me of another horror film for sure. Maybe a Thai West film. The Innkeepers, the old man in the basement, that scene at the end there. Very similar to that. I feel like I've seen this scene before, like of an old man. Yeah, it's on the tip of my tongue, but I can't get it, guys. Anyway, I've gone long enough. I don't want to spoil anything. Watch this episode. It's definitely my favorite Tales from the Crypt episode. Television Terror, episode 16, season 2. Definitely great, and I highly recommend it. It's a perfect length, just under 30 minutes, and it doesn't drag for a second. And then, of course, the last thing I want to say is I love it at the end when the camera crew basically has the option to pull him out of the haunted house because he's like, whoa, he's starting to freak out. He's like, shit's really actually happening in here. I'm going to die. Get me out of here. And then the ratings, they find out, like they're getting phone calls from, I don't know, the ratings channel, and they're saying, keep him in there. The ratings are going through the roof. People are loving this because the whole thing is live. That's the whole thing. He's on air. And so they just kind of look at each other like the cameramen from outside, knowing that they hate Horton Rivers and they think he's a scumbag, piece of shit. They just look at each other knowing that he could very well be in danger, and they just smile and say, nah, keep him in there. The ratings people are liking this, so I just thought that was awesome. And a great climax, a great finale. So check it out, guys. Catch y'all later on Body Bags with Horror Laws. Peace.